Welcome to Talking Halos. This is Derek Ciapola, my co-host, my partners in crime this evening, Nate Green and Jared Timms, and we are here to talk some Angels baseball post-Ohtani. And I guess that's where we start, just because there are a few things that changed since the last time we were on the show. Of course, a few people I saw on social media pointed out that we talked about the pay and so on and so forth, and now we find out that basically he did something nobody expected. He actually deferred 97% of his money. $2 million a year, $68 million being deferred per year to the end of his contract. How do you guys feel about that?
It's fine.
It's cool. I'm still for $46 million a year. This isn't even an Angels fan. If anybody watches the show consistently, for $46 million, that's still out of the price range for what we felt comfortable for signing Shohei Ohtani, because I think the Lux tax is $46 million. This all changes if Artie Moreno would have shown that he would have gone above and beyond over the luxury tax. And we talked about this last time. If he had ever shown that he was willing to go above and beyond and push for a Yamamoto type of guy, or push for some other pieces to make this team a winner other than just Shohei Ohtani and the business aspect of him, I would say $46 million is it ends up being a pretty decent contract from where the Dodgers are at, and since they're willing to go above and beyond. Artie has not shown that he's been able to do that. Not saying he hasn't spent, just saying he hasn't shown that he's willing to go above and beyond to build that winner around Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. So if you've been listening to the show long enough, that's still out of where I believe is comfortable for someone who's coming off of 2 Tommy Johns and is a DH only and is getting older and has had injuries in the past. He is still a fantastic player, and the deal is very good for the Dodgers, a team that is willing to go out there and spend, a team that is still going to be in the market for free agents, Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki down the road. I mean, this deal is very good for them. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't have worked for the Angels. I think about it a little harder at $45 million a year or $46 million a year from the Angels, but I'm still out. I'm still a no-go. But heck of a job. I mean, that was a crazy number that came out. And from a financial standpoint for Shohei, super smart, by the way, getting out of California and not having to deal with the taxes. He doesn't get paid technically in California if he's not living in California. That's $680 million. It's just the $20 million up front that he gets taxed on. So it becomes
unless the state of California goes back with the law that they're trying to pass, which says if you move out, they can continue to tax you for, I believe, up to 5 years, which would be absolutely unbelievable. But they're still trying to do that.
That won't.
They are trying to do that. That was a law that California was trying to pass.
Whoa.
It's not constitution.
Not a political podcast. We're talking baseball, fellas.
I'm just telling you, like it could still be.
I'm a freaking social studies teacher, guys. I mean,
you could still get taxed on it.
If you're not working in that state at that time, that you can't constitutionally tax somebody for it. Just so I can't wait for that to go through the courts.
They're trying.
Anywho, I guess Nate, your whole take on it. I saw what you kind of gave as he was talking about that. What are your thoughts?
I mean, $46 million for a DH only is unbelievable. I'm out on it. Like, there's not anything in me that's like, oh yeah, 46 mil, I would have done it. Like, no, you can't take a position away like DH that is so useful when you have a team that's getting older. And I don't really know how much he's going to pitch. And I say getting older, I'm really talking about 2 guys, Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout, which are going to be on the team for the foreseeable future. You're not getting rid of Anthony Rendon's contract. Mike Trout's not going anywhere. $46 million.
So we'd like to see Joe Adell. We'd like to see Joe Adell hit a little bit more too in that spot.
That's fine. But $46 million just a lot of money for a guy who's not going to play a position. He's already had 2 Tommy Johns. Who's to say he won't get hurt again? And who's to say he's going to pitch again? I know everyone is very confident he's going to be able to pitch again. There are not a lot of this kind of reminds me of the Jared Walsh thing that we talked about a couple of years back, where it was like, there's not a lot of data of guys having this surgery, coming back and being very successful. And everyone's like, no, you guys are wrong. You have no idea what you're talking about. And what do you know? Jared Walsh was not ready when the season started. And he also was not very good. You look at guys that have come back from 2 Tommy Johns, the data's not there to suggest that, 2 Tommy Johns and the guy's going to still be as good of a pitcher as he was. The velo isn't typically as high as it was. And we saw that he was very reluctant to throw the splitter at times last year because he knew his elbow was going to explode. So that's his best pitch. If he's going to throw a lot of sweepers and 93 to 95 mile an hour fastballs, he becomes a very hittable pitcher. So I don't know. I don't see it. I just don't. I think the Angels got the best 6 years out of him you possibly could. The 6 years that you were going to get out of him were the first 6 years, and then after that, like, I think it's best for the Angels to let him go. As hard as it is for Angel fans to cope with that, it's like it's kind of a guy that ran its course, and it's time to move on. The Angels need to get better in a lot of different areas, and they could use that money, whether it's $46 million or $70 million, however you want to look at it. $46 million they could use to get better in other places.
I think it's pretty telling, though. A couple things are telling. Like, you mean to tell me he just now came up with the idea to defer a bunch of money?
No, he gave it to multiple teams.
Well, no, he had to have brought it up in the off season and things like that.
But what I'm saying is that they could have done a Mike Trout a couple of years ago and done the same kind of extension, and they could have saved money in the last couple of years ago. Bring guys, I mean, he was getting paid $30 million last year. So my point is I don't really believe, this is just personal, that he ever really intended to stay in Anaheim. And I mean, if we're honest about it, and people are going to like hearing that, would you blame a guy who's been there for 6 years and you haven't sniffed the playoffs? Part of me is salty that it's pretty clear that the Angels, even though apparently the Angels were in the top 3, top 4, they weren't. Everybody knows that they were never really in it. That as long as the Dodgers are in, as long as the Dodgers are willing to pay the money. So I guess that's the real thing. But the kicker goes back to our last show. No matter how we frame it, if Angel fans are going to be upset about anything, it's the fact you traded away you bought instead of selling at the deadline. That's what you should be upset about. Not that he's gone, because either way he was probably going. We all talked about that. And now you're left with a second round pick and nothing else, and you got prospects that are already gone. So I mean, that's just that none of their numbers, in my view, change that at all. So now we got to start over again with a second round pick to go with it. Any closing thoughts on that before we do move on and close our door on Shohei?
Yeah, it kills me the past 2 years that we've been saying trade Shohei Ohtani because he's not coming back, and now we're at this point. Now we're at this point, and it's like, damn it! Like the Angels could be pretty dang close to contending. I mean, you look at what the Nationals got for Juan Soto, and then again what the Padres now have gotten for Juan Soto. Like, if you were to get something very similar or more than that, like, dude, you were real close. You probably could have traded him to the Yankees for Volpe and a couple other pieces, or, to the Mets for Marciano and a couple other pieces. Or I know these names are all prospects and, minus Volpe, but I mean, you could have gotten some nice pieces, and you could be really building around those pieces right now with the core that you drafted and traded for, that we've talked about and we're going to continue to talk about. But I mean, in hindsight, if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you know our feelings about Shohei Ohtani and trading him and not extending him and not signing him. But yeah, now we're at this point, and that's the thing I think that hurts me the most. It's like, you got a second round pick, and now that second round pick will forever be attached to Shohei Ohtani, and that's not going to be fair to that second rounder at all, especially if they, go under slot or anything like that. So, just sucks.
Nate?
No, I think we've kind of hit it all. Like, it sucks. We've been saying trade him, and they didn't, and we're in this position. And I think everyone knew going into this offseason, like, yeah, they're going to be in it as much as they can, but they're not actually going to win, because if they were going to win, Ohtani would have signed an extension in July, but he didn't want to, and it was pretty obvious.
I do think he thought about it. It's hard. This was his home. I do think he thought about it, but the Dodgers are too attractive, and Dodgers have been preparing for this for a while there, and even the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays still have a lot to like about their club. At the end of the day, it almost feels like we're kind of patting ourselves in the back because we were right. I wanted to be wrong. Yeah, like generational talent, you want to be wrong. You want him to win here. You want him to stay here. You want to be one of those guys who plays for 20 years and goes to the Hall of Fame here. But the writing was on the wall the whole time, and that's the shame of it. Moving forward, though, we have a club that has a core, is not as well off as it could have been because there was no deal made to trade him before, but there's still a core. And there are lots of other things on their agenda now. They got to find a way to put a competitive club out there. And that brings us to our first matter of business, the trade. David Fletcher and Max Stassi going over to the Braves for a couple of prospects who weren't living up to their potential, if I remember Jared mentioning that last show. Can you break down that trade for us, Jared?
Yeah. First, for the Angels standpoint, you don't know what you're getting with Stassi anymore after missing a year. Nate, you brought it up 1,000 times with the injuries. You just don't know what Max Stassi is. You're hoping that he can catch 75 games for you. You hope that he would have been a nice backup for Logan O'Hoppe, and that's probably what he would have been. But you still don't know what you're getting. He missed a full year of baseball. Not too many guys come back after missing a full year of baseball, no matter what the case was, even though he was fully healthy and he was just tending to family matters. From a fan standpoint, I know it sucks to see David Fletcher go. It's nice to get those contracts off the books for sure. And I'm sorry, John, because I texted him right away. But I'm also happy for John because he went to Atlanta. So he gets to see David Fletcher. Him and his wife get to see David Fletcher more.
Oh, they're stoked.
Yeah,
His
I know. I
wife Gloria
texted him right
loves
away.
him.
I said congrats, and he didn't even see it. And I was like, Fletcher's going to Atlanta. And so good for John. I'm excited for that. I wish the Angels wouldn't have ever extended Fletcher. At the time, it looked okay. Like he's coming off a really good year. At the time, Nate, at the time, it looked okay. He's coming off a good year.
With absolute terrible numbers.
You hope that he continues to grow, and he didn't. It would have been a nice piece to be able to move around the infield and things like that. He never lived up to the Ben Zobrist potential that everybody put on him. But at the same time, you get Evan White back, who's very similar to David Fletcher, probably a little bit. I'd say a little more potential than David Fletcher on the bat side of stuff. I think he's got a little bit more power. He's not going to hit all that well. Plays really good first base. Unfortunately, that's the only spot that he plays, so he's going to be nice. Some pretty nice depth in AAA. You're paying him a good chunk of money. I think you're paying him $4 million. On you're paying him $8 million. Yes, that's fine, Nate. But you're really the Lux tax is $4 million.
Yeah, but Artie doesn't care about the Lux tax. Artie cares about what's coming out of his pocket.
So I care about that. So
Artie cares about what's coming out of his pocket, and $8 million is coming out of his pocket.
The hit isn't that bad to the Lux tax, which isn't too bad. You can live on. I mean, former first round pick. I liked him in Seattle. I'm glad the Angels didn't draft him, but I liked him in Seattle. He had one good year, and they extended him. On the pitching standpoint, there isn't a lot on Tyler Thompson. I mean, there is, but crafty lefties who's around the zone. Good out pitch. It's very similar to what you see. I think he's a Rule 5 pick too, so the Angels might end up just giving him back as well if they need to open up a 40-man spot too to the Mets. So the Mets might end up getting him back. So at the end of the day, end up being a salary dump. You lose some names that fans like, but you hope that Evan White might actually learn to hit a little bit better. And you never know with Ron Washington as a defensive guy how much better of a defender Evan White can get too. So. Just
he's a Gold Glove guy.
Yeah,
he's a Gold Glove guy. Like he's a very good defender. Evan White is a very good defender. Yeah. Has some pop potential. Strikes out an absurd amount. But the nice thing about Evan White, like he's not on the 40-man, so you don't have to worry about adding him to the 40-man unless you need him. So he's not taking a 40-man spot unless he wins a job. Which if he wins a job, more power to him. But I don't see him winning a job. At least out of spring, but you never know. Somebody gets hurt and he comes up and he playing well in AAA, which the ball flies there. He could actually put up some really good numbers in AAA where he could easily hit 30 bombs this year, and people are going, "Why is this guy not up?" It's like, well, he's still striking out 28% of the time.
He's that guy that when Nolan Shanwell is getting on it has like a 370 on base percentage, but
Mhm.
it's batting 220. Everybody's going to be calling for Evan White because he's going to be batting like 300 in AAA with 35 home runs, and it's going to be like, well, like pump the brakes, like let Shanwell develop, let him do his thing. This team isn't doing very well right now. Like let Shanwell develop and play well. Let White do his thing. You know, you want to see him get his opportunity, but at the same time, like that's that type of guy that's going to go and hit 40 home runs in Salt Lake.
He's Trey Cabbage. He's literally Trey Cabbage getting paid more.
Yeah.
The one thing about him too, he has not had never ever had good numbers in the major leagues. Seattle signed him right before they called him up and said, "Hey, you're our top prospect. We want to get you to a nice contract of." I think they got 8 out of him. Maybe it could get up to 10 if all the options hit. But so it was one of those deals for them. They kind of swung and missed, and no pun intended on that. But moved him to Atlanta, gets traded to the Angels, and Stassi's already moved his way onto the White Sox. So interesting. I would say it's been an interesting offseason for Atlanta, just like taking on salary guys and then moving them right away. And I don't really even know if they're getting anything crazy out of these salary dumps, except for like they're not even getting guys. They're getting 40-man room for them. So I don't know what they're doing. But I don't want to question them either because they know what they're doing.
They do know what they're doing.
Well, they keep winning 100 games, so yes.
I'm sorry. I was pondering the Angels again. My bad.
Oh, I meant Atlanta.
Not the
Sorry.
not the Angels. No.
Yeah, no, Atlanta.
I was just pondering the Angels game. Yeah, I'm just sour dump, and I'm wondering what they're going to do with it. What are they going to do with it? Are they just not spending as much? Or, I mean, they're talking about they still want to compete. So I'm wondering who they're in on, which we're going to get to in a minute. Also, signed DJ Snelton to a minor league deal, a left-hander who apparently can throw up to 102 miles an hour. Minor league deal. Explain how on earth he's a minor league pitcher, basically pitching 102 miles an hour. Tell us about him, Jared.
Well, when you hit the backstop 3 out of every 4 times, you're not going to make it to the first. No, I'm kidding. That's not really it. But yeah, when you can't find the strike,
I don't know. The number suggests that.
when you can't find the strike zone, that's usually how that works. You can throw as hard as you want. You can throw 110 miles an hour, but if you can't find the strike zone, you're not going to get a lot of looks at the major league level. You're going to get a lot of opportunities to pitch in the minors and maybe show that you can find the strike zone. But yeah, I mean, when anybody that can throw that hard, you're always interested in. So it's going to be a name to keep an eye on when it comes to spring training. I'm sure he's going to get all the opportunities in the world come spring. Because if he makes the bullpen out of spring training, I mean, bullpen now just goes up in velo and it becomes a lot more fun. I mean, you've added quite a few high velo pieces to add on to, Ben Joyce, Sam Bachman, who I don't know if Bachman's even going to make the team out of spring. I think they're going to start him, but that's a whole different argument that we can go into at some point. Caceres, who we saw at the end of the year, Jose Soriano, who kicks up to 98. They signed Luis Garcia, who averages 96 mile an hour fastball, 97 mile an hour fastball. So, yeah, the bullpen's actually kind of a lot of fun and definitely somebody to keep an eye on if you can keep it around the zone. So.
Interesting with him too. He shortened up his arm slot. He used to be a real long arm slot guy. Shortens it up, and he went from like 88, 92 all the way to 96 to 98, touching 102. So, interesting transformation for him. That's partly why he hasn't really done anything. I believe last year was his first year in 3 years in playing professional baseball, and then he went and played independent ball after the Yankees cut him. So he's coming off indie ball. The walks did go down a little bit in independent ball, which is what you expect when you throw 102. You expect anything around the zone to be pretty good in independent ball. But I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing is if he can throw strikes, it's going to give him a chance to make the bigs and make his major league debut. Not major league debut because he did make his major league debut with the Giants. Also struggled with walks in that those couple outings there. So. Interesting arm. I think it makes sense with what the Angels are trying to do, but you still need two guys who have been in the major leagues, like actually on minor league deals as really pitchers. We can't just say this is going to be our depth minor league reliever. Like we got to go get somebody, probably 2 other guys to fill in behind this big league bullpen.
And then there's the rumor mill. The Angels potentially in on JD Martinez and Yamamoto. How you feel about this? I mean, the Angels are just kind of out there in la la land as teams are starting to sign players, and everybody's wondering, who they're going to try and go in on, who will want to sign here. Dan, I'll start with you. What's your gut feeling right now?
I think everyone's in on Yamamoto. Like, he's 25, he's an ace. Like, especially if you have any money at all, like, you're gonna be in on Yamamoto. I'm not saying Oakland's like really, really in on this. They might be for all we know, but the guys that are big players, the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Angels, the Cubs, the Rangers, Astros, all those teams that it's like, hey, we've got some money, we're willing to spend it. When you see a 25-year-old who can be a top of the rotation type arm, I think everyone's in on him. We all want him, but I don't know if the Angels are going to get him. But, stranger things have happened. Nobody thought the Angels were getting Shohei Ohtani 6 years ago. Nobody thought the Angels were getting Albert Pujols 11 years ago. So Artie's pretty good in the room. Like, I think if he has to fool you once, he's got a shot. If he has to fool you twice, that was kind of my biggest thing with Ohtani. He had to fool Ohtani twice. But if you only have to get fooled once, he's pretty good in the room. You see, Mike Trout got fooled once. Albert Pujols got fooled once. Hamilton, all these guys, they only had to get fooled once. But the guys that he's having to like re-sign a second time doesn't typically work out for him. So it's going to be interesting where he signs. I don't know. But the JD Martinez rumor, I think, is interesting. Perry came out and said it seems they're looking for a middle of the order bat. Wow, I'm so shocked. Who would have ever guessed that they needed a middle of the order bat? I think it preferably. I think if you really look at the Angels lineup, it should be left-handed, and it should be a guy that does not play DH 95% of the time. And we talk about this a lot. Defense is very important to Wash. So JD Martinez playing the outfield 60, 70 times a year probably isn't the best fit for Wash. I'm still bringing up Cody Bellinger. I think it's a possibility. The Giants signed Jung Ho Lee today, and that might take them out of the Cody Bellinger running. So you might have the Cubs and the Angels that could be in on that. But I think the Angels are fielding calls. My biggest concern is Perry falls in love with his roster and says, you know what, we're good. We don't need to get better, which you've heard him say so much. And it's like, Perry, do you not understand? This team is not as talented as you want it to be. Like, we have heard him say, our position players are pretty good. Like, we don't need more position players. Our starting pitching is pretty good. We don't need more starting pitching. It's like, no, you do. We're running Tyler Anderson out there right now in a 5-man rotation. That's not good. We're running Griffin Canning out there. It's not good. So I don't know. They need to go make a move to stay competitive, but I just don't know if they're going to make the right move. I'm still worried that they panic and go sign Blake Snell for way over market value or something like that. I'm not a big Blake Snell guy, but that's just me.
Well, you mean to tell me you don't have faith in the Angels front office to get it done? Is that what you're saying? I mean, really?
I think they can get deals done. Like, we've seen them get deals done. Do I see them spending the money wisely? That's the interesting thing. And Perry's track record isn't great with that right now. And I know everyone's going to say, let Perry cook. And, he's done a great job. Aaron Loop, Ryan Tepera, Tyler Anderson. Do I need to continue? No, I do not, because it's not good.
I mean, every team makes mistakes with their signings. No, there's no perfect free agent, but the track record in the last couple years,
yes.
especially when building the bullpen, has been spotty at best. Jared, what are your thoughts as we talk about Yamamoto and Bellinger and so on and so forth?
Well, I want to see the Angels get Yamamoto for sure. And I think the fact that things are quiet is a good thing when it comes to big names and Artie Moreno. If you start hearing them a lot, I think it starts not being good. I think that's agents throwing around the Angels because everybody knows the Angels are always in on players. So if you don't hear anything, I think that's a good thing. We're not hearing too much about Yamamoto, which means I think the Angels have a little bit of a chance. We didn't hear much about Shohei either, which I think again the Angels were very much so in on Shohei. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's up to you guys. When it comes to the DH side of things, if you're thinking that JD is going to play 50, 60, 70 games in the outfield, then sure. But to play JD 160 games as a DH is not what I want to see. We've talked about this before. To keep the Angels healthy, you gotta get some of these guys off their feet a little bit more. Anthony Rendon, Mike Trout in particular. It'd be great to see Joe Adell, who I brought up earlier, in that DH spot a little bit more, having him just focus on DHing instead of playing the outfield. And other guys, some how many times did we see guys banged up and not put on the IL or not playing because hey, they might have been able to play, might have been able to just hit, but realistically, we can't put them on IL because they're not that hurt, but Shohei's got to hit. So we have to do that. So and I think the Angels are very much so in on the starting pitching side of things, man. I don't want to see them trade for one of those big name starting pitchers. If I mean, the only guy that I'd really say is Alek Manoah. We talked about this. I know Nate, you're not fully in on Alek Manoah, but for the years and the guys that they're talking about trading for, if they trade for a guy with 1 year left and think that, oh yeah, this is the year that we're going to go make the playoffs because we have Ron Washington and we lost Shohei Ohtani and we're rolling out the exact same team plus this pitcher that we got for this 1 year. Man, just wait for them to hit the free agent market next year and go. We can talk about them next offseason, but don't go trade for a guy that has 1 year. Go build a team right now. So for me, I mean, if it's on the starting pitching front, yeah, Yamamoto makes a lot of sense. I'd hate to see them overpay for Blake Snell, but I mean, Blake Snell's not too bad of a pitcher when he's on. Alek Manoah is an interesting arm for sure, but yeah, I want to see him build for the future because right now you're running out a very similar team that you ran out last year, and that team lost 90 games, was it? So that's a
Lost
little
enough.
bit, yeah, that's a little bit worrisome to me on that side of stuff. So the fact that we're not hearing too much is a good thing when it comes to the big names. The fact that we're not seeing very many smaller signings like we've seen in the past is a sign that Perry's probably not all that involved in the free agent market right now. In my opinion, which take it for what it's worth, and maybe this is Perry's last year on that standpoint. So I don't know. Something I'm sure we'll talk about down the road.
One last thing in terms of what you're talking about. If I'm in the Angels, I am going hard for Yamamoto. And I'm gonna be hard pressed to let somebody outbid me there. 25 years old, get him for 6 years, pay him all this money, and you're getting the guys. You're gonna get his peak years. So I don't really just see a point in wasting time on trying to get pretty here. You've long needed a guy with ace potential. This has been a major problem outside of Shohei, and Shohei couldn't stay healthy. No matter what we talk about, no matter how much we love Shohei, the guy could not stay healthy long term. And I think part of that you have to consider the idea that he was overworking himself. He's doing the job of a two-way player, and that it means you're not resting like you normally should, especially when you're throwing 100 miles an hour. That's not Yamamoto's job. Yamamoto's job is not to be that two-way player. His job is to come in and dominate every 5 days, and that's what they really need, a guy whose sole focus is dominating. So there's a silver lining in the Shohei thing. With Shohei gone, it sucks. You lose that bat, you lose him, but the positive is there's so much more flexibility to the roster. There's more room to move and build than they had before. So embrace that and hopefully they can do it right. There's still some positive things about the roster, folks. There are still pieces there, and now you have some money to move around a little bit. So not all hope is lost. I'm seeing all these posts in these Angels groups. Oh, I'm done being a fan. I can't believe they did this. 29 other teams didn't get Shohei either, and at least the Angels are still finalists. I can't believe, honestly, after all the hot garbage in the last 2 years, did anybody here actually think they'd be a finalist? They were. Kind of surprises me. So those are my closing thoughts. Follow us on Twitter, Talking Halos. Send us an email at talkingheels@gmail.com and see if you got some comments and questions yourself. We'll be happy to answer them. Or you can just annoy Jared on Twitter as well, because why not? He's there to be annoyed. Any closing thoughts, guys, before we're out of here?
Yeah, two quick things. One, JD Martinez, the last time he actually played the outfield consistently because last year he played 3 games in the outfield. 2019 was 39 games. 2018 was 59. So the odds on him playing the outfield very, very slim. Doubt he's the guy. I think that could just be, you know, an agent trying to create something, knowing that the Angels just lost Shohei. Like, hey, let's throw JD Martinez in there. He kind of fits if they're going to replace Shohei. Last thing for me, everyone thought the Nationals were dead after Bryce Harper signed with the Phillies. They go on to win the World Series. We don't have a Juan Soto. I know that, but who knows? You get a couple of good things. Yeah. Hey, relax. You get a couple. You get a couple nice breaks. You get Cody Bellinger and Yamamoto, and Bellinger has the year that he had last year. Yamamoto's an ace. Like, who knows? Maybe we're in this thing. So I'm not giving up hope yet. Obviously, we'll wait and see how this offseason continues.
They got Mike Trout. So that's my final thought. They got Mike Trout.
That's fine.
They got Mike Trout
for 70 games maybe. All right, I know that was low. Follow us on Twitter again. Roddy, have a great one.